So a few weeks ago, I did something that I never thought that I would ever even consider, and I switched to Omnipod, and I'm actually wearing, this is my very first pod, got it on right here. This is the first one that I've ever worn. I've only worn it for about 5 hours, but during this journey of me switching, I learned a ton, and genuinely, I wish that 4 years ago Jake could watch this video. I even wish that 1 year ago Jake could watch this video. So I'm gonna go through my story. Make sure you stick around to the end. If you're even considering Omnipod, even if you're not considering Omnipod but you're diabetic, watch this video because there is some important information here. So if you've watched some of my last couple of videos, you probably know that the Tandem t:slim X2 has been, I guess disappointing would be the word to describe it. I've had infusion sets only lasting about 2 days when I'm used to getting 3 days. I feel like the algorithm just hasn't worked for me. It hasn't been aggressive enough in correcting highs. It's been okay at avoiding lows, but not great. And it's got a lot of minor frustrations that have really started to annoy me. I still feel like it's a better option than the Minimed, especially because you can't buy the 780G. It's a better choice, at least for me. It's crazy to me that the 780G hasn't launched yet. I mean, how long has that been in the pipeline for? But anyways, yeah, I feel like it's better for me than the 780G or 770G, whatever's on the market right now, solely because it uses the Dexcom G6 as the sensor. For me, the Guardian sensor was just terrible. It was inaccurate. Average sensor lasted like 3.5 days. Like, it was just a bad sensor to me. So even though I really liked the pump that Medtronic put out, just the sensor was a deal breaker for me. I don't want to rehash too much. I already made a video about this. If you haven't seen that, I'll put the link right up here. But yeah, just the t:slim, it was good, but it left me disappointed in a lot of ways. And when deciding on the t:slim, I never really even considered the Omnipod, and there was 2 big reasons why. The first one was the cost, which I'll get into later. It should not have been a concern for me. And B, that it didn't have like an automated algorithm that hooked up to a CGM. So that second one, it got mitigated when they announced the Omnipod 5. And I watched the interview with the CEO on Nerdbeck's channel, and I just got so excited. I loved how the CGM and the algorithm, like, it just hooks up directly to the pod. And that's where the algorithm is. So like, even if your phone or you don't have your PDM on you, it's still going to give you like automatic corrections. And that was just so exciting to me because I hate taking my phone and my pump on runs with me. And I never wear my pump when I'm playing basketball. And my phone's always out of range when I'm playing basketball. It was stuck in my basketball bag with my shoes. So the fact that this happened, it got me really excited. And it kind of gave me a glimmer of hope because there's no $4,000 initial startup cost. You know, I, for the first time in a long time, am not planning on hitting my max out of pocket this year. So the fact that it was just the cost of the pods themselves and there wasn't this huge upfront cost, it gave me a glimmer of hope. And I thought, hey, you know, the Tandem's not working for me. I finally have another option. And so also this new insurance that I'm on, it doesn't have a deductible, and there's just like a fixed copay of what you pay for durable medical equipment. And so every other insurance plan that I've been on, it's like you hit a deductible and then you pay a percentage of durable medical equipment. And so since it's just a fixed cost, I figured, hey, if I'm going to be paying the same for the Tandem infusion sets as I am for the Omnipod, then this can be a no-brainer. And right as I'm like strongly considering this and giving this a lot of thought, I see the FDA announcement that the Omnipod 5 has been cleared. So I got super excited, and I filled out, you know, the questionnaire on the website, waited for the dude to give me a call. And eventually he did, and he gave me the disappointing news that, yeah, we got FDA clearance, but it's super limited launch right now. We're trying to get some more data. Like, it's going to be probably 3 to 5 months before we officially launch the Omnipod 5. Like, good news, though, is that on your insurance, the contract that we have, you don't have a deductible to meet, and you don't have a copay. Like, Omnipod will literally, like, just the dash system, he's like, it will literally be free for you to use. If you know me at all, you know that free is like my favorite word in the dictionary, right? So my ears just perk up, and I'm like, I really wanted to have the Omnipod 5, but I'm like, if it's going to be no cost to me, then yeah, let's get going on the Dash system. And so I go home and I discuss it with my wife, and of course I'm just excited that it's free, and I am excited that it's going to be tubeless and stuff. And literally, like, as we're discussing it, her hand gets caught in my tubing for my T-Slim and rips my infusion out, and it just felt like a sign. It just felt like it was meant to be. But so anyways, I'm excited to get it started, and so the next day I'm sitting at work, and I get a text from my Walmart pharmacy saying that prescription's ready for $120 and some cents. And I think originally that is the Dexcom. That's really high for Dexcom, but they've kind of been fighting a pre-auth, and I was like, whatever, I'm busy at work, I'll tackle that later. And then Michael, the rep from Omnipod, he calls me and he's like, hey, I've been working with your doctor. We called in a prescription to that am in Walmart. I was like, wait, so that's probably it then. I was like, well, I got a notice that a prescription's ready, but they said it was $120. I thought that you said this would be no cost. He's like, yeah, looking at your plan, it should be no cost. He's like, so he was like, why don't you give Walmart Pharmacy a call and verify that that's what it is? And I did, and it was. And so I called him up, and he's like, yeah, I'll call the insurance, and I'll fight with them and try to get them better coverage on that. So he calls me the next day, and he's like, man, I don't know what to say here. I thought your contract said it would be no cost. It turns out that this is the price. And $124 or whatever it was just for a 1 month supply. And I was like, I'm not going to pay 3 times as much as this as what my pump supply is. Like it's a cool concept, and I find the technology exciting, but I'm not going to pay 3 times as much for this. And anyways, long story short, I did a little bit of research, and I found out the reason the cost was so high is because I do have a pharmacy deductible for anything lower than a tier 2 drug. And so that was factoring in. I went through my CVS Caremark, which is my insurance company's like preferred pharmacy, and they give discounts if you do a 90-day supply versus a 30-day supply. And I mean, just bottom line is, the cost throughout the year, yes, it's more upfront. But the cost at the end of the year, it's going to be about $15 cheaper for me to use the Omnipod Dash than it would be to get, insulin pump supplies every quarter for my tandem. So 2 points to that story. Number one, if you're talking to a tandem sales rep, they tell you it's going to be free. Lower your expectations. It might not be. But number two is what I realized, and this is what's so important, is that it's a prescription. And the reason why it's such a big deal that it's a prescription is because a lot of employee-sponsored plans, the deductible doesn't apply to prescriptions. Like when my wife worked at a bank, I had a $1,000 deductible, and then you forgo the deductible, and it's just like a fixed cost for certain prescriptions, right? So like insulin, it was $25 whether I'd hit my deductible or not, and it was the same for most drugs. And like in my past videos, I've talked about how I could never work at Walmart because their health insurance, well, it's very affordable. Like it's a very low amount of money coming out of your paycheck. Their deductible is $2,750 for an individual and about $6,400 max out of pocket. And that just meant that I'd be paying for my pump supplies, entirely out of pocket basically. But because this is a prescription, it's exempt from that deductible, and that means that I'd be paying $50 a month for this, $50 a month for my insulin, $50 a month for my Dexcom. I mean, $150 is still a lot, but it's something that makes it a lot easier to swallow than a $6,400 max out of pocket. And if you're not on a plan like this where drugs and prescriptions aren't exempt from the deductible, usually they'll have a separate deductible that you need to hit before they start covering a certain amount. And if you're paying for insulin, which you definitely are if you're using Omnipod, I can all but guarantee you're going to hit that deductible anyways. The bottom line is, because it's a prescription, it really, in so many circumstances, it can be so much more affordable. Like when Maddie was working at the bank, I wish I had known about this. I would have been on Omnipod, and I wouldn't have had to worry about the $1,000 deductible. And at that time in our lives, I mean, $1,000 is still a lot to me today, but back then it would have made a big difference. It really would have. And in the 3 years since she stopped working at the bank, I've hit my max out of pocket every single year. So I don't know why I was worried about the cost. I shouldn't have been, because I knew that I would hit that max out of pocket. So for those of you that are still watching, thank you, first of all, because you guys are champs for the YouTube algorithm. But keep watching because I'm gonna I'm so excited about this. I really am. But real quick, I just want to go some quick pros and cons. Big pro is I get to wear an infusion set on my arm for the first time ever. I definitely never would have felt comfortable doing this with the Minimed or the tandem, because like, what if I like reach up for something at work and the cord pulls and running a cord through my shirt? Like, it just I never would have felt comfortable doing that. So that's a big pro. Pro number 2 is obviously very closely tied in, and that's no cords. I think it really is overinflated. All these avid Omnipod users, they're like, oh yeah, no cords getting stuck in doorways and stuff. Like, yeah, it does happen. Probably like 2 or 3 times a year. It's not that big of a deal, but it still is a big convenience. Pro number 3, I guess the word I would use is to describe it is comfortable. It feels good to wear, but not only that, it's the comfort of me not worrying that if I stand up too quick and my pump's going to fall in my pocket, or it's not hooked on my waist right and it's going to fall and it's going to pull. And that happens a lot, and that is that's painful for sure. And then one that's kind of a pro and a con is, a lot of people, what they like about the tandem is that it looks more modern and it uses a touchscreen, and it's kind of got the profile of like a smartphone. It's got a touchscreen, it's got some buttons, but this actually is a cell phone. This is the PDM right here. It literally is a cell phone. It has a SIM card tray. I mean, obviously it's not running full-fledged Android. It's got at least a custom ROM. It might be custom software, not based on Android at all. I'm not too sure on that. But the point is that when you're using it in public, it is incredibly inconspicuous. If you give yourself insulin for a meal, it looks like maybe you're just shooting a quick text. But the reason that it's a con is because, well, it might make you feel like a baller carrying 2 phones. You feel a lot less like a baller when it is a $40 phone, or at least it looks like one from 4 years ago. This thing is definitely dated. Not that performance has been an issue. It's an incredibly lightweight software, so performance hasn't been an issue at all. It looks old, it looks dated, and they've really stripped a lot of functionality I think would have been cool. It would have been cool to be able to at least turn on the flashlight. And truth be told, it feels unnecessary to carry because it just communicates with the pod via Bluetooth, and your phone could do that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited for Omnipod Horizon, is because if you have the right phone, then you don't need to carry a separate device, and you can just do everything from your smartphone. Also, truth be told, now that it's not attached to me and it's just like a loose device, I am so scared that I'm going to lose this thing. I really am. And con number 2, I guess I would describe it as ticking. This thing, it's got a faint tick whenever it's giving any insulin. It's not anything super crazy. I would compare it to the ticking of a hand on a clock. But it is there. And also, when you're first putting in the infusion and you say, hey, it's attached, go ahead and insert it, it's like tick, 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 and it is nerve-wracking. I am sure I will get used to it, but I was like, holy crap, when is this going to go in? This ticking is scaring the crap out of me. And con number 3, and I can't really fault Omnipod for this, but it's just the little things that I miss about the tandem. I miss not necessarily needing to check my phone. I can just look at my waist to see what my blood sugar is, how much insulin I have on board. Now, it feels like more of a chore because I have to go and unlock the screen and do that. Also, with the tandem, you could quick hold the button and press it to give yourself quick insulin. Definitely no option here. You have to completely unlock the phone. They require you to have a PIN, and you have to put in that PIN to do anything on the phone, whether it's give yourself insulin, see how much insulin you have on board, anything like that. And I do miss the peace of mind of having that auto mode, knowing that, if I drastically overeat when my blood sugar is low, that, hey, even if I spike up a little bit, I'm going to come back down because my pump's going to notice and give me a correction bolus. I do miss that peace of mind, and that's what brings me to what is so exciting is, well, this doesn't natively have this. This works without any kind of adapter or anything with Android APS, which, if you don't know what that is, it's Android's version of looping on iPhone. And so I am actually building the app right now, and I'm going to have it up and running by the time I get my next pod in. And I'll make a video about that, so if that sounds interesting at all to you, please make sure that you're subscribed. Even if it doesn't sound interesting, please make sure you're subscribed. As always, please like, subscribe, comment, all the YouTube stuff. Small channel, and getting more subs really, really does help me, and it makes me feel good. So please do that, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.